Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the technique bowing to Buddha and some of the more important principles, theories, rules, strategies, and concepts of the technique. So let's start out with a major concept that's throughout the American Kenpo system but can easily be highlighted in this technique. That will be the ideal phase of a technique and expanding upon it. So why is that important? Well, historically speaking, if you take a look at bowing to Buddha, he was originally in form 4. It was later on extracted out, added to the self-defense curriculum with a couple of parts that were extended to it to make it the new base or the new ideal phase. So this brings in another concept, length of techniques. So there's typically 3 lengths in our techniques. We have a short version, middle version, and a long version. So why is that important? Well, because of the other concept demonstrated in this technique. That is being left in the middle of a fight. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you take a look at our techniques, we are typically left in the middle of a fight, or the other option is we show you how to leave the fight. So why is that done that way? Well, because this brings in the concept of the formulation equation. This is purposely done to get the practitioners to start using the formulation equation so that they can decide whether they would like to continue engaging in the fight or whether they want to safely leave the fight. So now that we talked about those concepts, let's talk about some other concepts in the technique. In this case, degrees of readiness. So what do I mean by that? Well, I could start in a ready position. I could be in a semi-ready. I could be in a non-ready position. But we can go to even farther down the spectrum and go to the disadvantage. So if you notice, I'm starting at a disadvantage for my opponent. But we could also do the opposite of that, where we start at an advantage and our opponent's at a disadvantage, but we won't discuss that in this video. So why are we at a disadvantage? Well, it's obvious. He's standing and we're kneeling. So this is already putting us at a disadvantage because for the most part, I don't have these 2 weapons available to me. I'm only using my hands while they have all their weapons available to them. So why is that a problem? Well, because in this case, we're going to be dealing with an in-flight major, in this case to our right leg, against our right arm. And typically, there's a general rule that the arm loses to the leg, again, depending on your height and your opponent's height and physical limitations. So this is going to bring in another concept, the windshield wiper or angle of deflection. What I don't want to do is create an angle of incidence where I'm trying to do a smothering block to their kick and take the full impact on my arm. Rather, I want to create an angle of deflection to divert the kick so that I don't get hit with it. But how do we do that? Well, this is where that windshield wiper comes in. Typically, the windshield wiper is done with the elbow as the pivot point where we're moving the hand. You can see why these are called windshield wipers. In this case, we're doing the opposite. Our hand is the pivot point and we're moving the elbow. But notice it's still using a path of travel, moving in a circle. So let's show you what this looks like and then continue on with the technique. So notice what I did. As I begin to do the block, I also started to establish my base. Now, obviously, we're still at a disadvantage. They have both their feet. I only have one of my foot. So I'm still 1 knee down. So we're still not getting the upper hand, but we're trying to. So keep in mind that this is our strategy. So let's take advantage of the open-ended triangle and deliver the heel bump to the groin. Why? Well, because we're between the arms, and we have a general rule that anytime we're between the hands, we want to start controlling the height. But keep in mind, what we're doing with the right arm is important. I know that if I hit him in the groin, I might start an orbit that's going to reorbit back to hit me. In this case, vertically, through reactionary positioning, I might get hit. So how do we prevent that or stop that? Well, this brings in the concept of gauging. Depending on how committed he was, I might be closer to the opponent or I might be farther from the opponent. Depending on the case, I might have to add a foot maneuver to close the range. So how does that affect what we're doing? Well, if you think about it, if I hit him now, he's at the perfect range to headbutt me. That's where this elbow would come in to start protecting my upper zone and have him hit my elbow with his head. This is the concept of target to weapon. But if we were a lot closer, I might want to prevent the bend and of the body. So what we would do is we would strike to the body with the elbow. So I would do this to keep him up so that he's not coming down. So let's talk about another concept. In this case, vice-like maneuvers. So this is different from sandwich because a vice typically has a base and one part is moving or it could be this is the base and this part's moving, where a sandwich uses both parts moving. So why are we doing a vice rather than a sandwich? When again, what I just talked about, I want to cover up my high zone because we're at a disadvantage. So once I deliver the strike, I need to have this elbow in place to start protecting myself. Then I can decide to finally do the strike. So if you notice, this brings us to our concepts that we were talking about at the beginning. We have done the short version of the technique, or in this case, the ideal phase of the original technique, and we are left in the fight. So how do we continue from here? Well, this is, again, using the formulation equation, you have to decide. Do I want to get up and leave? Or do we want to continue? In this case, we're going to continue. And the reason we're doing that is to highlight one more concept, flipping roles. So if you notice, we started out at a disadvantage where they were at an advantage. The idea here now is to do the opposite, or flip the roles. So once we deliver our strike, the idea is that now we're standing up, getting our levers, and taking them down so we can show the opposite. Again, this would now be a middle version of the technique. If we were to continue with the rest, you could get to the long version of the technique, but like we typically do, we're just going to disengage and cover out. So now that we talked about the rules, concepts, principles, theories, strategies, let's demonstrate it once for the ideal phase without going into the long or middle version of the technique. Up. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.